Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Please consider subscribing and check out our Patreon for more. Enjoy the video. Bob fidgeted nervously in the cramped airplane seat as the plane cruised high above the Atlantic. He glanced over at his wife, Melissa, dozing peacefully beside him, a small smile on her lips. They were finally taking the European vacation they had dreamed about for years. The plane jolted as it hit a patch of turbulence, startling Melissa awake. She blinked blearily and turned to Bob. "Are we there yet?" she mumbled. "Almost," Bob said, patting her hand reassuringly. "Just a couple more hours." Melissa yawned and stretched as best she could in the confined space. "I can't wait to land and change out of these clothes. I've been in this outfit for over 12 hours straight." "You and me both," Bob agreed, plucking at his rumpled button-down shirt. "First thing I'm doing is taking a long hot shower and putting on some fresh clothes." After what felt like an eternity, the plane finally touched down at Heathrow Airport. Melissa and Bob gathered their carry-on bags and shuffled down the aisle, eager to stretch their legs and breathe in some fresh air. They made their way through customs and headed to the luggage carousels to retrieve their suitcases. Bob drummed his fingers impatiently as they waited, and waited, and waited. Bags from their flight slid down the chute and circled around, but theirs were nowhere to be seen. A sinking feeling settled in Bob's stomach as the carousel ground to a halt and the last few passengers collected their bags. He exchanged a worried look with Melissa. "You don't think—" she began. "I'll go talk to the airline rep," Bob said tersely. "Wait here with the carry-ons." He strode over to the airline desk, where a frazzled-looking woman was typing furiously at a computer. "Excuse me," Bob said. "My wife and I were on flight 1673 from New York, but our checked bags never came out. Can you look into it for us?" The rep, whose name tag read Cynthia, tapped a few keys and squinted at her screen. "Mr. Robert Nelson?" she asked. "That's me," Bob confirmed. Cynthia winced apologetically. "I'm very sorry, sir, but it looks like your luggage was accidentally loaded onto the wrong plane. It got sent to Moscow." "Moscow?" Bob sputtered. "As in Russia? How the hell did that happen?" "An unfortunate mix-up, I'm afraid," Cynthia said. "We deeply regret the inconvenience. I can assure you we are doing everything possible to locate your bags and get them on the next flight to Heathrow. In the meantime, the airline will provide you with an allowance to purchase necessities. If you'll just fill out this paperwork." Bob trudged back to Melissa, the airline voucher clutched in his hand, and broke the bad news. Her face crumpled in dismay. "Oh no, all my nice vacation clothes, our toiletries. What are we going to do?" "Don't worry, they gave us some money to buy what we need," Bob said, trying to sound optimistic. "There's gotta be a clothing store or something around here where we can grab a few outfits to tide us over." They collected their measly carry-on bags and made their way out to the terminal, searching for anything resembling a clothing retailer. But as they walked, their hearts sank further. Every store was dark, metal grates pulled down over the doors and windows. Spotting an airport janitor pushing a cleaning cart, Bob hurried over. "Excuse me, are there any clothing stores open? My wife and I lost our luggage." The janitor shook his head. "Sorry, mate. Not at this hour. It's near midnight. Everything's shut up tight till mornin'. There's a 24-hour Tesco down the road a bit, but they won't have much in the way of clothes. Hotel shop might have a few things if you're staying there." Bob thanked the man and walked dejectedly back to Melissa. "Apparently everything's closed this late. He said the hotel might have a few items, but I wouldn't count on much. Looks like we'll have to make do with just our carry-on stuff for tonight." Melissa looked stricken as a sudden realization hit her. She unzipped her small wheelie bag and pawed through the contents. "Bob, I didn't pack a change of clothes in my carry-on. I just have a book, iPad, and some snacks. What about you?" Swallowing hard, Bob opened his bag. He had his laptop, camera, and a few other electronics. And tucked in the corner, a clean pair of boxers and socks. Nothing else. The gravity of their predicament started to sink in. They were stranded, exhausted, and sweaty from long hours of travel, with no fresh clothes between them except Bob's underwear. Bob squared his shoulders, trying to stay calm and take charge. Okay, let's not panic. We'll head to the hotel, get some sleep, then first thing in the morning we'll find a store and buy a few basic clothing items with that airline money. We'll make it work. Too tired to do anything else, they found the shuttle to their airport hotel and checked in. The bored clerk didn't even bat an eye at their haggard, disheveled appearance. As soon as the room door shut behind them, Melissa collapsed onto the bed. I'm absolutely disgusting. I need a shower like I've never needed one before. Did you see if the hotel shop had anything I could change into? Even just a t-shirt? Bob shook his head glumly. Just touristy knickknacks and snacks. Not so much as a bathrobe. I'm sorry, hon. Melissa pressed her fingers to her temples in frustration. Then her eyes landed on her open carry-on bag and a speculative look crossed her face. She glanced over at Bob. Okay, I have a crazy idea, she said slowly. Just hear me out. What if you wear some of my clothes for tonight? I packed a few dresses and things that are pretty loose and stretchy. They might fit you. Bob gaped at her. You want me to wear your flowery sundresses? I can't do that. I'll look ridiculous. More ridiculous than wearing filthy, smelly clothes to bed? Melissa shot back. She dug through her bag and held up a light cotton dress. This one has an elastic waist and the top is flowy. I bet it'll fit. Please, Bob. I don't want to see you suffering in those dirty clothes. Bob hemmed and hawed, cheeks flushing at the thought of squeezing into his wife's feminine dresses. But exhaustion and discomfort won out over embarrassment. Fine, he relented. Give it here. I'll try the damn dress on. But you owe me big for this. Melissa flashed him a grateful smile and handed over the garment, along with a clean pair of her underwear. Here, you can wear these too. I'm sure you're dying to get out of those sweaty boxers. Face flaming, Bob slunk into the bathroom. He felt utterly silly as he gingerly stepped into Melissa's silky lavender underwear. The unfamiliar feeling of soft lace and the snug fit around his hips made him squirm. But he had to admit the cool fabric felt amazing compared to his damp, chafing boxers. Steeling himself, he pulled the sundress over his head, feeling it settle loosely around his body. The hem fell to his knees, and the thin straps left his arms and shoulders bare. He caught a glimpse of himself in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back, his masculine frame draped in pastel florals, the fabric straining slightly around his chest and biceps. Pulse pounding, hardly believing what he was doing, Bob opened the bathroom door and stepped out. Melissa looked up from unpacking her toiletries and her eyes widened. Her mouth fell open slightly as she took in the sight of her husband wearing her sundress, the stretchy material clinging to his body. Wow, she breathed. You actually don't look half bad. Her gaze roved over him appreciatively. Melissa's obvious approval made something flip over in Bob's stomach. He started to actually enjoy the sensation of the light, loose dress swishing around his legs, so different from his usual rigid jeans and shorts. He swayed a hip and struck a pose, batting his eyes. You like? He joked. Maybe I should raid your closet more often. Melissa giggled and walked over to straighten the dress's fluttery sleeves. Who knew my rugged husband had such great gams? With a shave and some makeup, you'd be a real knockout dame, she teased. Chuckling, Bob pulled her in for a hug, reveling in the slide of their bare legs and the press of her silk nightie against his borrowed dress. Maybe there was something to this cross-dressing thing. The next morning, he reluctantly changed back into his smelly clothes so they could go out. They found a department store and stocked up on some basic vacation wear and toiletries. But as Bob browsed the men's department, he found his eyes wandering to the colorful racks of dresses and skirts. An idea started to take root. Glancing around furtively, he rifled through the dresses until he found some larger sizes that might accommodate his frame. He draped a couple over his arm, pulse racing at his daring, and went to find Melissa. Hey, hun, he said, trying to sound casual. since we lost our luggage anyway and have to buy all new clothes. What would you think about me getting some dresses and such? Just to have other options on the trip. No one here knows us, and lots of European men wear that kind of thing." Melissa blinked in surprise, then a slow smile spread over her face. "You wants to wear women's clothes on our vacation? Like out in public?" Bob shrugged, trying to play it cool even as his cheeks heated. "Why not? When in Rome. London." Linking her arm through his, Melissa led him to the changing rooms with an impish grin. "I say go for it, honey. You'll be the belle of the British Isles." Over the next 2 weeks, Bob and Melissa explored the iconic cities of London, Paris, and Rome, with Bob embracing his newfound fondness for feminine attire. Their first stop was London, where they threw themselves into sightseeing with gusto. They marveled at the intricate architecture of Westminster Abbey, watched the changing of the guard at Buckingham Palace, and took a spin on the London Eye for a breathtaking view of the city. Through it all, Bob strutted proudly in flowy sundresses and skirts, relishing the freedom of his new vacation wardrobe. The first time he ventured out of the hotel room in a belted floral dress and sandals, he felt a thrill of nervous excitement. But to his relief, no one batted an eye. In fact, he caught more than a few admiring glances from both women and men as he strolled hand in hand with Melissa. Emboldened, Bob began to experiment with his look. He picked out skirts in bold colors and patterns, loving the way they swished around his legs as he walked. He even let Melissa apply some subtle makeup, a coat of mascara to bring out his eyes, a swipe of pink lip gloss. One afternoon, they picnicked in Hyde Park, sprawled out on the grass to enjoy the rare London sunshine. Bob stretched out his bare legs, the hem of his red sundress riding up a bit as he reclined. Melissa giggled and playfully poked his calf. "I'm starting to worry you've got nicer gams than I do," she teased. "Seriously, you're really rocking these dresses. I had no idea you'd take to them so naturally." Bob shrugged and grinned, plucking at his bodice. "What can I say? It feels surprisingly ... freeing. I don't have to be big, tough, manly man here. I can just relax and be me, sundresses and all." "Well, I think you look great," Melissa said, leaning over to kiss his glossy lips. "I'm just glad you're having fun and embracing the experience. When else could you get away with this, right?" "Good point," Bob agreed. "Gotta make the most of this opportunity to let my freak flag fly." After a magical week in London, they hopped a short flight to Paris, the city of light and love. Bob was instantly enchanted by the ornate buildings, the quaint sidewalk cafes, and of course, the fashion. He couldn't resist picking up a few more outfits, including a chic silk shirt dress that made Melissa Wolf whistle appreciatively. Exploring Paris in his feminine finery, Bob felt impossibly glamorous and cosmopolitan. He joked that he was channeling Audrey Hepburn in Funny Face as he posed for photos in front of the Eiffel Tower, his red lipstick perfectly matching his belted A-line dress. Melissa took to calling him Betty as a playful nod to his womanly alter ego. "Come on, Betty, let's get some lunch," she'd say with a wink, taking his hand as they strolled along the Seine in their sundresses. He even did a little shopping on his own one afternoon while Melissa visited the Louvre. The shop girl happily helped him select some new lacy underwear and bralettes much fancier than Melissa's utilitarian travel undies. After a romantic week drinking in all Paris had to offer, they took the train down to Rome for the final leg of their European adventure. By now, seeing Bob in women's clothes felt utterly natural and normal. He breezed around the Eternal City in belted sheaths and fit and flare dresses like he'd been wearing them all his life. The Italian men they encountered certainly seemed to appreciate the way the light, clingy fabrics hugged his athletic figure. Bob blushed and preened at their admiring stares and wolf whistles, even flirting back a little as Melissa watched in amusement. "Careful now. If you bat your lashes any harder, you'll take flight," she joked as a gaggle of appreciative young Italians called out compliments. Melissa helped him indulge his growing beauty routines, showing him how to shave his legs silky smooth, painting his toenails a fetching coral to match his favorite sundress. Bob felt utterly pampered and adorned, loving the ritual of selecting each day's pretty outfit and accessories. One night, after watching an opera at the iconic Teatro dell'Opera di Roma, Bob in a slinky black cocktail dress, they returned to their hotel room giddy and a little tipsy from the wine at dinner. The rest of the Roman holiday passed in a sun-soaked, wine-fueled dream of sightseeing and romance. Bob and Melissa snapped selfies in front of the Colosseum and Trevi Fountain, fed each other gelato on the Spanish Steps, and made out like teenagers in the shadowy corners of the Sistine Chapel. Through it all, Bob reveled in his feminine attire, breezy dresses, lacy undies, strappy sandals, and Melissa couldn't get enough of seeing her husband's masculine physique draped in womanly silhouettes. As their flight home loomed closer, a melancholy settled over Bob. He knew that back in the real world, back in the U.S., he couldn't exactly show up to his office job in a floral sundress and heels. Being Betty was a vacation fantasy, not an everyday reality. Their last night in Rome, lounging on their hotel balcony in the sultry evening air, Bob voiced his worries to Melissa. "I don't want this trip to end," he confessed, picking at the hem of his lemon-yellow dress. "I don't want to go back to being boring old Bob." Melissa leaned her head on his bare shoulder. "Oh, honey, you're never boring. But I know what you mean. It's been fun to step out of our regular selves, try on different personas." "More than fun," Bob said softly. "Being Betty, wearing these clothes, the makeup, it's awakened something in me, Mel. A different side of myself I never knew was there. I feel beautiful, free. I'm going to miss it. So don't let it end," Melissa said simply. "I mean, obviously you can't go full glam femme 24/7 back home, but who says you have to leave Betty behind completely? We can find ways to keep this part of you alive." Hope bloomed in Bob's chest. "You'd be okay with that? With me wearing women's clothes sometimes at home?" "More than okay." Melissa looped her arms around his neck. "I've loved seeing you come alive like this. Embrace your girly side. You're my husband and I adore you." Emotion clogged Bob's throat. "How did I get so lucky?" he mused, capturing her lips in a sweet kiss. "Just promise you'll let me borrow your clothes sometimes," Melissa said with a playful grin. Bob laughed and kissed her again. "It's a deal." They lingered on the balcony until the first blush of dawn lightened the sky, wrapped in each other's arms, filled with gratitude for a trip that had expanded their hearts and minds in more ways than one. And as they boarded the plane the next morning, Bob in a pretty green knee-length dress, he felt happy and hopeful. Their luggage may have gotten lost, but he had found something invaluable, a deeper, truer version of himself. He could tuck Betty away for a while, but he knew she'd be back. After all, their anniversary was coming up in a few months. Maybe he could surprise Melissa with a weekend getaway to the coast and a suitcase full of slinky new dresses and bikinis. With a secret smile, Bob settled into his seat beside his wife, already dreaming up more adventures for Betty. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out Patreon for a lot more content and early access to YouTube videos.